So welcome to our demo today. We're titling this Interactive Disc Simulations, Hands-on Simulation-Based Practice with the Tools of Disc. And you can see that cute little flying penguin there at the bottom. That's the tool that we're actually using today. And we're going to share that a little bit about that with you. We've been partnering with Flying Penguins to really explore ways to practice disc in even more effective ways. So that's kind of how we got into all of this. I'm going to jump in. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kristin Emerson. I'm the Director of Client Learning for Online Disc Profile. Been working with disc for a very long time. Been working with AI for about as long as most people have, which is probably the past year and a half. And I feel like everything is going that way now. So I'm really excited to talk about this tool today. I think it's pretty neat. Tim, you want to say hello?
Hello. I'll say more than that. Hi, everyone. My name is Tim Schwanz. I'm our account manager here at Online Disc Profile. I've been using Disc over a decade, and always kind of looking for more ways of how do we actually implement what we're learning and what we learn about ourselves through Disc. So yeah, really excited to show you all this platform here too.
Great. We also have Brian Miller with us, kind of running things behind the scenes as our producer. So Brian, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off just with that entry poll. I wanted to see who's in the room with us and what your experience level is with the two things we're really talking about. One is disc and the other is AI. So the first question is just about your disc experience, and the second question is about the tools that you're using at this point from a learning and development perspective. Oh, we have quite a mix. Well, that's really good, actually. I was figuring we'd have a lot of broad perspectives, which is good. We do have that. So looking at this, it looks like the majority of you, and I didn't put like I've never heard of disc because I literally have disc in the title, so I figured you've at least heard of it enough to have gotten here. It looks like most of you have more than just heard of it. You've done something else, whether it's completed an assessment or a workshop. You might be a facilitator, and a couple of you are extremely experienced, so you've done a lot with disc. And as far as AI, it looks like, and Brian, you can share these results if you'd like. It looks like a lot of you are using it already, and a few people said no. And I put unsure in there because half the time now you're using AI and you don't even realize it. So I thought some of you may not even really know how much AI is playing into what you're doing every day. Okay, so keeping in mind a lot of you already know at least something about DISC. I think you'll probably be able to resonate with kind of my opening point here, which is that DISC is an amazing tool, but there's some challenges around keeping it going, right? DISC provides a great toolbox, great personal insight. It allows people to come out of that opening session, whether it's a team session or it's a one-on-one coaching session or a debrief with their report, and they've already got some tools in front of them for dealing with conflict, having more difficult conversations, and making sure that there's not communication gaps between themselves and their colleagues. All of those things are great. We get our DISC report. We get tools and tips from the workshops. A lot of times there's action plans and takeaways. So there's a lot there that can lead into us continuing to practice with DISC. But we also know that one of the key elements of practice is building a habit of adapting our behavior. And the main way to build a skill is to do it over and over again. And sometimes it's a little bit harder to take those tools and keep putting them into practice over and over again in the way that we would need to really become adept, to really develop an expertise with some of those challenging conversations, for example. And of course, until recently, the only way to have those conversations was to have them, right? There was no low stakes way to practice a real tough conversation. You just had to go have it and hope that those tools were up to snuff and that you were ready to pull them out when needed, right? So what we kind of came into this with is the idea that real conversations require skill under pressure, and that there needs to be a better way to practice those situations without actually having high stakes. But they need to feel high stakes, right? Because otherwise it's not really a true practice of those skills. So this is really the challenge. Fortunately, other industries have already had this problem and have come up with ways to solve it. For example, through a couple things here. There we go. Aviation and medical industries have always dealt with high stakes problems that people need to be ready to solve the right way the first time. And so what they turned to many years ago was simulators. On the left, you see an aviation simulator. On the right, you see somebody working with a simulation with like a not real patient, obviously. Doctors in the medical field will often learn to do surgeries using simulators before they actually try them in real life. So what this creates for us and maybe more relatable to us is a structured practice. So another thing that might be even more relatable than aviation or the medical field, depending on what your background is musical instruments. So structured practice when no one else is listening is very essential to playing an instrument. Nobody wants to have people sitting there listening to them squeak and squawk as they, trudge their way through a musical piece for the first time. But that is really the only way to do it. Just playing notes is not going to get you there. You have to have the structure of practicing that piece of music until you get it right. And so that idea of being able to do something well because you've done structured practice is really key. So I do have a couple short pieces of research to share. I am a C style, so I immediately wanted to know, where does all this come from? This will be brief, but there are a couple pieces of research that I wanted to throw out there about the idea of using simulations to practice. So research has found that behavioral change does happen because of that idea of structured practice. And a person who's done a lot of work with this is Anders Ericsson. What he found is what he calls deliberate practice. And that is that expert performance results come primarily from structured long-term practice and not from innate talent, which is a real relief for, me, with my own musical experience has been as soon as I grab an instrument, it fails to sound good anymore. But it's not a talent thing. It is about sticking with it and doing that structured practice. And that's true not just for music, but he actually looked at chess as another example. He looked at medicine and at sports. So again, it's not just something innate for people that are really expert at something. It's all about structured, effortful activities, usually designed by somebody with expertise, so a teacher or a coach or an instructor, to target a person's weaknesses, giving them immediate feedback when they're practicing, and asking them for many repetitions until they get it right. Just pushing them just beyond that comfort zone, helping them to get better and better. What they found, or what Anders Ericsson said does not help, is just spending time. So just setting a stopwatch and sort of noodling. That's not going to help you. It needs to be structured. There needs to be feedback, not just understanding a concept, but really doing the repeated practice and getting better that way, little by little. Another piece of this is that learning is more effective when people try something, reflect on it, and then try again. And this is the experiential learning model. Some of you may be familiar with it. David Kolb, basically learning by doing, right? You experience something, you reflect on it, you make a few adjustments, and you try it again. And that's exactly what simulations are meant to allow you to do. Of course, in the past, simulations for things like flying an airplane were very expensive. They were impractical for most fields. So that, when you think about it, the ones you hear about the most, like medical training and flying airplanes, these are life or death situations. You don't want to feel inexperienced the very first time you go in and have to deal with doing a major surgery. You want to feel practiced. And so that's why they were willing to invest in that sort of thing. But now artificial intelligence has made simulations a lot more accessible on a broader scale. And we're seeing more and more of them in lots of different areas. So enter flying penguins, which is the tool that we are specifically working with right now. Flying penguins is a tool to help you practice DISC through a scenario-based platform. And I wanted to show you and kind of give you a little tour of this today and really just kind of get everybody's sense of how they feel about this, whether they think this would be helpful. My limited experience with it so far has been very positive. It does feel like I'm really having a conversation, along with all of the stress that comes into play when you're dealing with a tough conversation. And then you get immediate and actionable feedback once that conversation is over. And so since we've been working with this tool for a little bit, and we do have it available if anybody is wanting to try it, we'll give you more information about that after I kind of show you what it does. I wanted to mention it has a bunch of different applications, but I really think what sets it apart is the very excellent practice section that is all about doing these one-on-one conversations that are simulations but feel real. And so that is what I'm going to demonstrate for you all over the next couple of minutes. Does anybody have any questions so far? Anything we need to answer?
Nothing that's popped into the Q&A pod so far, but feel free to put your questions there just to make that comment again.
Sure.
So yeah, any questions along the way, certainly be asking them. If you don't see a Q&A pod, look at that little 3-dot more menu in the bottom toolbar here too. But yeah, Kristin, back to you.
Great, thank you. I am going to try to find my desktop among all of my layers of stuff that I have open. There we go. And I'm going to share actual flying penguins and not a picture of it. At least I'm going to try. There we go. Oops, need to. Okay. I have my entire desktop, which is not what I was wanting to do. Give me 1 second. Try that one more time. I'll just go ahead and share this and we'll pop it open over here. There we go. Okay. Everybody can see my screen, right?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. Okay. So what I have pulled up here is the landing page for the practice area in flying penguins. And the first thing that I want to tell you about flying penguins that I thought was really neat, because we're all probably thinking like we have so many tools already that we're using related to DISC. Depending on which type of DISC you're using, if you're working with online DISC profile, you're probably using one of our reports. And so you may already have that. You may have already invested in that. And one of the neat things about flying penguins is that you can use those existing reports to use this tool. When I first kind of uploaded into flying penguins, it does have its own DISC assessment in there, but I was able to, I can import my own DISC results. I can also just tell it where on the map, on a DISC map that I am, and it will already know everything it needs to know really for me to be able to do these simulations. So I'm a CS style, and you'll see that all over the place on here. And there are about 20 pre-made scenarios in their library right now that allow for role play simulations. Several of them are cases which are more involved. There's several linked scenarios that you can practice and kind of go through in an arc. A lot of them are just kind of standalone simulations that offer a bunch of different DISC styles and personalities for me to interact with, and I can choose the ones that I feel like are maybe closest to reality for me, or maybe ones that I think will push me a little bit. And then over here you can see I've been practicing because history is going to be all the ones that I've tried before. So I'm one of the top users now. I've done so many of these. It's a lot of fun though. It's been really great. Okay, I want to get my Zoom bar out of the way. Okay, so what I decided I would do is I want to show you two that are very different from each other to really give you a sense of what these simulations are all about. The first thing I'm going to do though is there is about a minute-long recording that explains the concept of the way the simulations work in here. I'm going to play that for you all. It's 55 seconds, as you can see here. That just kind of explains what we're going to see. All right, here we go.
Welcome. This is your space to explore, practice, and learn at your own pace. In these simulations, you'll interact with an AI in situations that may feel unfamiliar or incomplete. That's intentional. Just like in real life, you won't always have all the information, and that's okay. What matters isn't having the right answer, but how you think, adapt, and respond. Feel free to experiment. Try different approaches, tones, and behaviors. Be confident, curious, funny, evasive, or even frustrated. This is your playground. Everything here is private. The insights you receive are yours alone, and nothing is shared unless you choose to. You can restart and try again as many times as you like. Only your highest scores will count, so take your time and explore different strategies. There's no pressure, just learning. Whenever you're ready, let's begin.
Okay, so what I decided to do when I started out with this was to pick a style that I tended to find more easy to work with just historically. So I started out with one of their scenarios that's for an I style person. And so I'm going to play that one first, and I practiced it a little bit. And so I already know a little bit about like what the person's going to say and do, but I'll give you a little bit of the information first. After we look at that one, I also want to play a different one that I found a lot more challenging. It's a D style interaction with a little bit of a different take. And so you'll get to see a little bit about both, as well as see the feedback that I get afterward. Believe me, it's not going to be perfect. No matter how hard I try, I have not managed to get like 4 stars on any of these yet. Okay, so going to the library, let's start with this address execution gaps with Jordan. This is one of the newer ones, and the newer ones actually have a recorded overview of the simulation as well as some things to read about it. So for this one, I'll play the overview. It's just a minute long. All right, so here's my background information that I need to know going in.
You're about to step into a conversation as the implementation lead with Jordan Lee, one of your implementation specialists. Jordan has been building great momentum with customers. People enjoy working with them, and they create a positive experience during rollouts. Recently, though, a few missed details and follow-up notes and an assumption shared with a customer have highlighted a pattern worth addressing. While things are still on track, this is your chance to encourage Jordan's strengths while providing helpful feedback on tracking and communicating action items. To get started, try opening by acknowledging their recent wins and contributions. Let Jordan know you see their positive impact. Use a supportive, straightforward tone. Be direct about the details that need attention, but focus on offering guidance and specific examples they can act on. Your goal is to help Jordan understand what's working and where they can sharpen their process so they keep growing. Begin the conversation whenever you feel ready.
Okay, so there's also a bit more detail here written down. So this was the about Jordan part that we basically just heard. There was even a little bit more in that than there is there. The scenario here gives me a little more information that is going to be helpful to me when I'm giving them the feedback. So they're engaging on calls. They build rapport really well. They love the customers love them. But this is kind of the key piece here. Jordan sent follow-up notes that missed important action items. And last week, they told a customer that a setup change would be easy before they confirmed it with the product team. So everything's okay still, but I'm seeing, that there could be a pattern here where we may have to end up letting a customer down because we haven't been upfront about, a change maybe not being so easy, or making sure that we don't miss an action item that's really crucial. Okay, so I need to have this conversation. To prepare me, it does actually give me a couple of tips here. All the scenarios have these. So say, to give me some ideas for how to get started, which is sometimes the hard part. I think you get in there and it's a little intimidating. So Jordan, you've been doing great with customers lately. I want to talk about how we can make sure the execution matches that energy. And then there's a few other suggestions here too. So I'll try to kind of follow along the lines of that. I'm going to go ahead and just let myself make missteps so that we can get lots of feedback, and we'll see how I do. I'll let this go for maybe a minute or so. You'll get a sense for how this works. Okay, here we go. Once the audio is connected, I just say hi. Hi.
Hey, hi there. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I've been really energized by how happy our customers have been with our rollouts. I was actually thinking this chat might be about celebrating some of those wins. What's on your mind today?
Well, Jordan, I'm really glad that things are going well, and I have heard some really good things back from our customers about your work. I did want to check with you on a couple of issues that have come up, though.
Oh, that's awesome to hear about the good feedback. I've really enjoyed chatting with them. It's been so energizing. A couple of issues, though. Sure, I'm all ears. Let's talk it through.
So there's really just two key things. They're both kind of detail-oriented items. One is that I've noticed that in some of your follow-up emails, you're missing an action item here or there. I would hate to accidentally miss one of those and let the customer down.
Got it. And thanks for letting me know. I get so focused on keeping the momentum positive that sometimes those little details slip by. I definitely don't want us to miss anything important. Could you help me understand where it happened so I can tighten up my process?
Yeah, I think it was in the follow-up email where you were trying to go over what you had discussed during the call. What does your process now look like?
Thanks for bringing that up and for the positive vibes earlier. Maybe miss double checking those action items. That's on me. I want to make sure we keep the trust we've built, so I'm happy to slow down a bit and review my notes more carefully before hitting send. And going forward, I'll also check in with the product team before promising anything is easy. Does that sound like an approach we can align on?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up as well. Would it be helpful to sit down sometime next week and make a clearer process that you can follow when you're on these calls?
Absolutely. That would be super helpful. I'd love to collaborate on a checklist or some guidelines so I can keep the customer energy high and still make sure all the details are covered. Let's set up a time next week. Just let me know what works for you and I'll come prepared. Thanks again for helping me balance the excitement and the accuracy. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, we'll hit finish there and we'll see what feedback I get on this one. Jordan is always happy. It doesn't matter what I say, which makes that one a little bit less painful than some of the ones that are more direct. We'll try one of those next that I think I found it a little more challenging. So I felt like I was, letting them down. It feels very real when you're in the hot seat. Okay, so it takes a moment and it's going to be generating some feedback on how it went, and it'll be very specific. There's really three main insights that we're going to get in each of these feedback pieces. One is areas for improvement, obviously. This is going to explain exactly where I may have misstepped, things that I could do differently to demonstrate a skill and get a better outcome. There'll be recommendations. So these are kind of missed opportunities. These might be things that I could have said but didn't, and that would have made it stronger or better conversation. And then, of course, it points out strengths, things that I did especially well as we went through. And the main purpose in this feedback is always to connect what I said with the outcome in the conversation. And also to give me feedback on how my style and how this other person's style are kind of interacting together. So there's a lot of disc focus here, you'll see. So first of all, I did pretty, oh my gosh, I got 4, finally. Thank you. No, I got good job on clear messaging. And then contribution recognition and accountability, I did fine. So as I scroll down, you can see it's a couple of these things, we got started. It's all good so far. So on the right side, you'll see a thorough transcript of everything I said and everything Jordan said during the conversation. Then where there's different areas where they fit any of those 3 categories I mentioned, an area for improvement, for example, there's this little like flag in this middle column. And so here it says, I said, well, Jordan, I'm really glad things are going well. I've heard some really good things about the customers. So it says, okay, so here's an area for improvement. I mentioned I'd heard good things, softened the conversation, but my recognition was too general. I could have been more specific, and somebody like Jordan with that I style would have probably really appreciated that, especially since this was leading into kind of a bad news conversation. So it gives me some different wording I could try. And then it also mentions how my style probably played into this. I value sincerity and precision. So again, specific recognition would also align with my preferences because I'd be giving that evidence-based communication. You're doing a good job. And this one customer told me XYZ would be a better way to approach it. So then it continues to, give feedback. There's a recommendation here where I could have said a little bit more. Let's see, the observable behavior and mention its value. So I could have said something like, you're especially strong at building rapport, and I really think that that's working well. I just want to make sure the follow through is strong. Here was another area for improvement. This is where I mentioned that they were missing an action item here or there. I'd hate to accidentally miss one of those and let the customer down. But here's some things that I could say that would be a little bit more direct, I guess. The here or there part is like me hedging. That's all that S in my style, most likely, rather than just directly saying this is a problem. And then I won't read all of this, but you can see that they pointed out a strength here. I was like, there's 2 things. Here they are. First, it's this one, then it's that one. Another recommendation for clarifying my messaging a little bit. A strength was accountability. I found in the scenarios, and this is probably true for me in real life as well, that, not just saying, I think it'd be great if you do this. It's more like, let's meet next week and see how this is going. And that's always going to come through in these conversations. They'll ding you if you get to the end and you haven't actually made a plan. A little bit more about accountability here. Like we probably should have set up the follow-up process. I didn't say, let's meet Tuesday. I just said, let's meet. And so that is the whole conversation. So there's a lot of feedback in here, even for a short conversation. I think it was probably like 2 minutes long. One thing you can do at this point, once you've had the conversation, is if it's gone reasonably well, which, I said this one's gotten better each time. So I can hit save and share. And whoever has been assigned in Flying Penguins as your instructor will get a message telling them that you completed the simulation and giving them the information. Otherwise, it's totally private. It'll still be saved to where you can come back and see it, but it won't be anywhere anybody else can see it. So, this is one nice thing. If you are the instructor and you're hoping to give people kind of have some accountability, give them instructions to try a few of these. And when they get to a point where they're happy with one, send it to you. It feels less like a test. They still have that privacy until they get it right, but then they can send you a version of it that they're happy with, and you can see kind of what they're doing and make sure they are actually doing it. So would we like to see me do something harder? Tim's nodding. Okay, we'll do one more. And this one is going to be a little bit more challenging. I think the one I decided to do is Dan. So I'm going to look him up. Let's see. This one, Dan needs some accountability. So I'll click on the Dan scenario, and you can see other folks that from my team that have been put in here with me, and I can see which ones they've done, which is kind of interesting too. So this one doesn't have, and I think is going to get an audio version where it tells me about it, but for now we'll just have to read. So Dan has a D style. He's a results-driven team member, but he often dominates meetings, interrupting colleagues, dismissing input, and showing frustration when discussions feel inefficient. So there's been a few complaints, and I've been asked to address his behavior. Lucky me. So Dan believes he's just getting things done and he views feedback as unnecessary or overly sensitive. So my challenge is going to be focused, acknowledge his strengths, and guide him toward collaborative behavior while matching his direct and assertive communication style. And that's very hard for me as a CS style. I tend to lean a lot toward S. My colleagues can probably vouch for that, I can be a little soft. Um, so this is the specific scenario. Couple of things here that I'm probably going to want to hit on because I know I need to be very direct with Dan. He is regularly disruptive. He interrupts, he sighs, he rolls his eyes, raises his voice, paces around the room, basically distracting behaviors that are shutting the conversation down. I have scheduled this one-on-one with him, and I get to now address this with him to see if we can identify the behavior, explain its impact, and align how things should change going forward with accountability and mutual respect. Okay, so let's go ahead and try the role play and see what happens. Hi.
Hey, let's get straight to it. All right.
Okay, sounds good. I wanted to ask you about some of your behavior at recent meetings. How do you feel you're showing up?
How do I feel I'm showing up? I show up ready to get things done. If I roll my eyes or cut someone off, it's because we're wasting time. So unless you've got something concrete, I'm not here for vague feelings. What exactly do you want to address?
Well, I believe that some of that behavior, like the rolling eyes and cutting people off, could be shutting down what could be a very useful conversation about some of the issues that we're trying to solve as a team.
Useful conversation is great if it leads somewhere. But tell me, what makes you think those moments I cut in are actually shutting things down, rather than steering us toward a decision? I'm not here to babysit feelings. I'm here for results. So if you've got a specific example, let's hear it.
In a recent meeting, you were interrupting people and always kind of being the first to respond when we were discussing ideas to move forward. I'd like to see you wait and hold back a little bit so that we can hear more from the rest of the team before making a decision.
So let me get this straight. You're saying my jumping in first shuts down others, and you want me to hold back to let the team speak more. Fine, but how does that not slow us down? What exactly do you expect me to do differently, and how will we keep decisions moving fast? Give me something concrete I can actually commit to.
It may slow us down in the moment, but I think hearing other points of view may bring us to a better decision in the long run. And if we make the right decision the first time, that will save us time.
All right, so you're arguing that a few extra minutes now avoids bad decisions later. I hear that, but I need specifics. How do you suggest I jump in without stopping others? And what's your role here? How are you going to make sure the team stays on track?
How about we make a plan? How about next time we have a meeting, we let at least two people speak up first, and then I'll call on you so that you can share whatever it is that you've been thinking about. Feel free to take notes as we go through so you don't forget.
All right, I hear you. You want two people to speak before I jump in, and then you'll cue me. That's clear. But I need to know you'll keep the discussion focused. So what do you need from me to stay on track after those two folks talk? And are you going to hold me accountable if I slip, or is this just a suggestion?
I will call on you and I will ask you what you think, and we will add your suggestion to the list of suggestions with the colleagues that have already spoken, and then we'll let the team decide.
All right, so you'll call on me, I'll give my input, and then the team weighs in. Got it. But I need to be sure we're not just adding noise. So can you recap how you'll keep the meeting tight and what you expect me to do if someone starts rambling? I'm willing to try, but I need that clarity.
Okay, why don't we sit down together tomorrow and actually make a plan on how we'll lay the meetings out to make sure that everybody has the same amount of time to speak.
Fine, that's direct. You want to meet tomorrow, hammer out a plan? Fair. I expect you to come with a clear agenda and timeline. I'll bring my notes. After we set it, I'll stick to it and you hold me to it. That work for you?
Works for me. Thanks, Dan. Okay, we're gonna that one went on and on. Sorry. He really wanted a lot of details, and that's the scenario what I've been struggling with the D style folks. It's good though because I think it's something that probably in reality I keep things too vague, and so it's a really good push to think about how do I nail something down with somebody who has that just keep moving through it attitude. Oh, actually, this is the best I've done so far, so I'm getting a little bit better. Honestly, the scoring, the first time I went through this, I think I had one green little line on all of these. Like it was terrible. And Dan got mad, and I at one point said that he was a jerk under my breath, and it hurt me. So, I mean, it's very like when they said you can joke around with it, you can really play with it, you really can. It's amazing what it will follow and respond to. I mean, Dan got upset because I was losing my cool, that kind of thing, and they can pick up on that. It's really crazy. So here's my feedback on this one. It did like that I opened with a question. The first time I did this, I didn't ask any questions, and that was feedback that I got. Don't just tell him, like ask him what you think we should do better. Um, I do think I was going to say, I bet there are going to be more places where it tells me I should have asked questions because I realized I didn't. So, asking things like when you jump in or visibly react in meetings, what do you think's happening for the rest of the team? And let him kind of develop that self-awareness. Again, open questioning. So much more questioning is probably really helpful. One of my strengths was emotional regulation. And that was when I even got the first time, except for the time that I swore under my breath and said that he was a jerk. But other than that, they said I was very good at that, which fits my style. So a lot of feedback on your own style. And then the accountability piece is still making a plan. I felt like I kind of got vague with that, and my wording was a little confusing. So I could have been more direct. Let's try this in the next 2 meetings. 2 others speak before you, then I'll invite you in, and then we'll do a quick check-in on whether that worked. That would be a lot more to the point. So something I could have said that would have been more direct. Accountability. So let's meet up again about this and check in. There were further recommendations then. So I could have said more about what I was going to do then. And that's the end. So again, lots of feedback on that one. I did think this one was harder, but it depends on probably your style, whether or not you'll find the D style harder or the I style harder, or one of the other scenarios as well. Okay, back in here. Does anybody have any questions about anything we just went through with the actual role playing and kind of seeing what that looks like? Let's stop my screen share for a second. All right. So now we've taken an actual peek at what that tool looks like. A question?
Yes. So my question is, this is one-on-one scenarios, but what if I want to prepare training material for my group? And I know that disc styles, does it do that, or it only does one-on-one scenarios? Does it help me form the training,
Yeah. At this point, the scenarios are one-on-one, but you can customize scenarios. So if you wanted to kind of practice working with certain different personality types, you could do it that way. But it wouldn't specifically tell you exactly what to do with your training materials. Maybe something that's worth, considering for the future, though, for sure.
Okay, thank you so much for clarification.
Absolutely. So I do have the pricing up there for this tool so far. This is kind of what we're piloting it at. It's not a contract situation. It's just a per user per month rate. And it does use your existing assessment. So whether you have one of our DISC basic assessments or your DISC style from something else, that's going to help you kind of have easy access to all the tools on that platform without that additional hurdle of having to have a DISC assessment. Brian, if you wouldn't mind sharing again that link to that training simulations link from our website. There's a little more information on there if you want to check that out afterward. Does anybody else have any questions, either about the simulations or anything that Flying Penguins is doing so far specifically? Okay, well, having shared this with you, we would really love to ask for your feedback. We are interested in, what you think of Flying Penguins specifically, and really on a larger scale, what you think about the idea of using these AI simulations to help people practice DISC tools. So we do have a poll, and I would love it if you all fill this out just to give us that feedback, because a big piece of, what we're doing here is instead of giving you a bunch of information, we're really hoping that you'll be able to share back with us some information about what is helpful to you and where the value is. So would love to hear about that. Thank you. Anybody else come up with any questions, let us know. Anything else that you'd like to hear about?
I have a question.
Wrap up. Sure. Yeah.
So I work with the TTI assessments for DISC, which is the driving forces and emotional intelligence.
Okay.
If you were to put your report into Flying Penguins, does it work for those other modalities?
That's a really good question. And Roman, I don't know if you'd be willing to answer to that one. I know a lot of disk tools can be input.
Yes, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is like ideally we need to get the format to see if we can import in batches.
Okay. So batch import may need a little bit of work, but yes, in general, if it's disk, then they can probably work with it. The other option too, of course, is like I said, it did a really good job of it showed a disk map and I put my dot on there just using my mouse. And then it had me double check that everything that it had, assumed about me based on my CS style was correct. And I said it was, and I was good to go. So you can always do it that way as well.
So in your DISC assessment, the CS style, are they both your two high points, or do you work with the low styles as well?
So for our DISC assessment, which is the DISC basic assessment, you can have up to 3 different assigned styles, and it's the first letter is your primary style. So for me, C and S are very close, but C is the stronger of the two.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's basically a combined style.
Yeah, so with TTI they work on the low score as
Okay.
well. So whatever your lowest score is as important as what your highest score is.
Okay. Yeah, and that's somewhat the same for ours as well. And that's why I think there's probably some value in actually importing the results versus just guessing, taking a target on the map and saying where you fall.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, one thing I just add to that a little bit is you receive a score for all 4 of the disk styles here too. So it's not just okay, I'm a CS style and I only have that as part of my results. I'm an ID style as an example, so my I score is 90-ish, my D style is 55 or 60, somewhere in there, and then also my S and C scores are still in like the 20s, 30s, somewhere in there. So I have a score for all 4 styles.
There we go.
And the simulation will process 4 dimension.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael.
Hey, I just got a quick question here.
Sure.
It looks like, and I could be wrong, but is this platform capable of detecting like emotion? Like I noticed that there was a little bit of back and forth of understanding whether it was angry or not. Like, can it pick up on that? I don't know if that's just looking at the context of the wording or if it's actually picking up on the inflections of your voice.
It does analyze the wording and the context, not the tone of voice.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to double check. So it just looks at everything that's being said and it kind of determines what the tone of the statement is from that, I guess, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
We tested some tone analysis, but we didn't get to great results so far. So maybe later on, the technology is evolving fast, but so far
Probably.
it's just the language. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
It's a great question.
Anything else? All right. Well, we'll wrap this up here, but do feel free to send us an email if that would be helpful to get more information. You can reach me at Kristin at onlinediscprofile.com. Brian, you want to throw that in the chat if you don't mind. Also, you can reach us through our website from that link that we've been sharing throughout the session. So. All right. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you coming.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.